In today's episode, I'd like to talk frankly about why many people who have high incomes are starting to transition to either buying a mountain retreat or some off grid cabin and really starting to go back to the land. And we're going to talk about why this is important, some of the things you want to avoid. But ultimately, we're gonna make that dream possible. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. So I got an email from someone who worked on Wall Street. Wall Street is a roller coaster. It churns their stomach at times. Some of the things that these banks are doing, but they were in part of this last bit of layoffs. Now they've got more money than they know what to do with. Buying land is not a problem for them. They're not trying to start a homestead with no money. But what they'd like to do is to build on their outdoor experience or their outdoor enthusiasm and be ready for market meltdowns and political firestorms. Now, again, this is not a prepping channel. This is a practical channel. I do want you to be prepared for emergency situations. I want you to be prepared for natural disasters. Those things are going to happen. It isn't when, it isn't if, it's when. When it comes to political uncertainty, if you live in a city, yes, and this individual lived in New York and they experienced the BLM riot, mostly peaceful riots and the dirt and the grime, and they long for just getting out of the noise and going to a secluded retreat. So we're talking a little bit about the sleep retreat that we're putting together and some of the opportunities that are there for them to have these experiences. But in their particular situation, they've seen online a lot of business opportunity to start their own retreat and to build their own homestead, and they had some questions. So let's address those questions. First off, you got to be smart and efficient about hedging against this chaos. Whether it's chaos from a natural disaster, from a grid outage, from a cyber attack, from civil unrest, from the changes of laws, rules, and regulations in your area, we have to be smart about it because even if you have a lot of resources, the how do we apply those resources? Now, we've talked about inflation and the increasing cost of land. In some places, an acre of land is $21,000. Now, in other places, it's $1,500. But how much land do you need to sustain yourself? So when people tell me they want a secluded mountain retreat, most mountain retreats are harsh environments. And so you won't necessarily be able to grow the food you want. So you better have hobbies like hunting, trapping, or you better have good relationship with your neighbors. And one thing that caught my attention here is they said think Walden Pond with Wi-Fi. Well, a mountain retreat, even with Starlink, is not going to have consistent internet access. And Wi-Fi is actually kind of harmful for folks. You don't, if you can avoid it, you want to go ahead and not use Wi-Fi, because if you're worried about political unrest, Wi-Fi creates a signal. We talk about this kind of thing in the secure homestead, but Wi-Fi creates a signal, so now people know you have a mountain retreat, and when they come looking for things, they'll more easily be able to find your mountain retreat. So there's concepts here we have to understand. So the basics would be is to Ethernet connect via Ethernet and then use some kind of Wi-Fi bridge or have some kind of cell tower connection, and then now that limits where you can be. And so the land price is going to be more in the $21,000 per acre, versus if you really got a secluded mountain retreat that maybe takes a couple days to get to, and you do have the skills to live off the land, then that gives you more choices. So do you see how you might have the desire to escape from the city and to set up in the rural area, but there's some logistics required, and we solve for those logistics by having a design plan. Where we can have that secluded mountain retreat built on our behalf, or we could buy an existing retreat. There was 1,200 acres available here in my region that sold for a little under $1 million, and it was rugged land, but it was within 40 minutes of cities, and so you had cell service in most of the land, and if you didn't, you could drive into town if you really had to get provisions. So again, we want to map out on paper where it is that we want to be in 3 years, in 5 years. We want to develop a plan, and then we want to look objectively, and we do this in consultations and we do this in coaching. We want to look objectively at how do we get this done. So when this gentleman was talking to me, and he got a small family, and they're living in a place to where they're paying $6,000-7,000 a month in rent for the apartment that's near the workplace. There's other money being spent for the house that's just slightly outside of commuting distance. They're paying for private schools. They're paying for such and such, and their target seems to be when the children graduate from high school. Um, but we can start planning for that now. We can start identifying what does it mean to have a resilient homestead. Well, a secluded mountain retreat is not a resilient homestead necessarily. If you want a sanctuary from market meltdowns, maybe that's a hunting lodge now, because you can acquire a hunting lodge, you can buy rights into a hunting lodge. You could set up as a business opportunity or a side business a hunting retreat area. You buy a piece of land out in the mountains of New York that's close enough that you can get to in a 2 or 3 hour drive. You set the land up, you put a caretaker on the land, and then as that land is developed, as you move parallel towards the goal of when his children graduate, you'll be ready to go. The thing about Walden Pond, it was a retreat. It was someplace you went periodically, and so maybe you don't have Wi-Fi, but maybe you can take a batch of work with you and work from a laptop off of solar, and now you can have that off-grid experience to see whether or not this is something you want. Now, this particular individual got laid off, and they had a severance. It was a significant severance, and they want something to do with this severance. And what I'm saying is, look, let's slow down now. Let's start slowing down now and think things out, because he was ready to drop money on something that would quite possibly not be a good investment. Then again, if land in some areas is $1,500 an acre, and in other areas it's $21,000 an acre, land could be a good investment. But what are we going to do with it? So, as the concept of what we're doing here at Prosperity Homestead is a lot different than the BizOp or you're going to build a retreat center and you're going to get in touch with nature. I like to give you practical strategies. So, what is the practical strategy here? So, first off, being able to convey that he's ready to change. Now, his wife still works in the banking industry, and so he doesn't want to move right away. But couldn't they have like a weekend vacation? Because this guy hadn't had vacations in at least 10 years. Since 2008, the economy's been pretty tough for those in Wall Street. And I know a lot of you guys are not really upset because the guy's making a lot of money. But again, the money doesn't buy the happiness. The money doesn't buy the peace of mind. The money doesn't buy that opportunity to really experience the family. And what do I mean by that? His kids are about to graduate, and in the conversation, there was a little bit of disconnect. So as a father, as a husband, there's an opportunity here to say, look, where do we want to be in 5 years from now? And then start getting that down on paper, and then start extracting from that things we can do right away. So he has time on his hand because he's currently not employed. The severance is going to last for probably 2 or 3 years at the current lifestyle. But if he's able to adjust the lifestyle, he's going to be able to make the severance last longer, and he can take an early retirement, and he can enjoy his mountain retreat, and he can, I think the Walden Pond thing came because he likes to write, and so can start the journaling and the writing that we talk about. And now he's very concerned about market meltdowns and political firestorms because in the consultation we discovered, and by the way, I'm not sharing anything that we haven't talked about. A lot of what this recording is about is helping this gentleman be ready. And so if you're concerned about a market meltdown, you better not have all your money in the market. And that's one of the reasons he was discussing buying a piece of land. We pull it up on the satellite. We try to figure out what's going to work, start outlining a design plan. But if you're worried about market meltdowns, then your money cannot be in the marketplace. Now, I'm not saying to withdraw all your money from the marketplace. This is not financial advice. Please talk with a certified financial planner and do the due diligence necessary before you make investment decisions. But my point being is, once you have a plan, now we can start funding that plan out, and we can say, okay, well, we're worried about market meltdowns. Are we diversified? If we're diversified, how much cash is going to spin off? Let's build our retreat based on the cash that's spun off rather than the principal. See, we want to be smart and efficient. We want to hedge against chaos. And then you're saying, well, because he did make the comment, he doesn't want some hippie commune. Well, he already does a little bit of hunting. What if he had his own private hunting lodge and it was someplace he could get to and it had the efficient storage, it had good storage, so he could store a bug out, he could store his food so he could stay there for the long term. In New York, there's some challenges where you could end up on a hunting lodge. Again, we want to be practical. I'm not here to scare anybody, but you could end up at a hunting lodge that you get snowed in. So you may want to have 3 months worth of food, 6 months worth of food. Not that you're going to get snowed in for 6 months, but for the time that you're snowed in, you want to be able to get through the winter season. And then ultimately, if you decide to stay a little bit longer, you can stay a little bit longer. But the underlying here is the political firestorms is a legitimate concern because it doesn't matter who gets into office next. If Trump gets into office, there's going to be a lot of obstruction. If Biden gets into the office, there's going to be a lot of destruction. And then if we get some third party candidate, then that's going to be confusing to everybody. And so again, at our current state of politics, at our current state of financial distress, we want to hedge the finances, build out something rather than dumping all the money into the whatever shows up. Because a lot of times that piece of land that you buy isn't the piece of land that you're going to develop. And there's a lot of reasons. You might get on the land and realize, so the secluded mountain retreat, if you want to get power to that and you're in the woods, you need to open a clearing in the woods. If you open a clearing in the woods in the wrong place, you get erosion. If you open a clearing in the woods and it's a mountain that gets a lot of snow, or you're on the wrong side of the mountain, you could end up with an area that freezes out. Again, if you put a primitive hunting retreat there that's a non-permanent structure, and you enjoy a few seasons there before you decide to commit to it, then you can find all these things out in advance. You can bring in the power, you can bring in the water, you can bring in the technology that you need. When we're talking about sanctuary, I do like folks to start in their own home. So this apartment in the city, if you're not using it or you don't want it, you can downsize it. The home, if you're not using all of it, you can start downsizing. Now, I've been downsizing for the last 2 years. It's kind of a pain in the ass. When you got a 5-bedroom house with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, I don't know. There's rooms in the house I don't even go in because it's too big. And so to get rid of things, that might be the bigger struggle than whether you can afford to buy a piece of land, or whether you can find the right mountain retreat, or whether you're going to be near enough to actually be able to have Wi-Fi, or you don't have political trouble before you get to that point. So again, define what you want, start developing a plan on paper. From that plan, start looking at possible options. Start using your, I don't want to say it's free time because life is not guaranteed. You don't really have free time. But start investing time to build that relationship with the family. In this case, it's entirely possible the wife will not want to move out to the middle of the sticks. And so you might want to take her to a few glamping retreats before you get there. Now, in this case, she's working hard because their income cut in half, and the severance is only going to last for 2 or 3 years, unless he wants to start digging into stock options and things like that. And I know not everybody has this situation, but the plan's the same. Decide what you want, develop a written plan, look at possible options, and then start experiencing right now what you need to build the skills, what you need to know if this is right for you. And see, Airbnb makes this so much easier these days. And you could literally go on Airbnb and find your perfect retreat and go out there and experience it. You can literally start buying land as investment. There's a lot of things that can be done, and you camp on the land. So as we've done with the trail system, you buy a piece of land as investment, you open up access, you clean up the roads, you camp on it, and then ultimately you start experiencing the land. You start getting an idea of the symbiotic relationship you'll have with that land. And for this gentleman's age, he's going to retire on this piece of land. So we also have to look at medical related issues, the ability to get on and off this retreat. So he may not want a secluded mountain retreat, But again, he says he definitely doesn't want a hippie commune, which I understand. So I hope this has been helpful, folks, because I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and especially those who are working in the financial services industry, especially those who are working in technology, because AI is out there. It could completely replace your job. We need to look at how we can take what we have, be conservative about it, make it last, but also grow it. And so, if you're going to be smart and efficient, if you're going to hedge against the coming chaos, you're going to have a shorter timeline than somebody who is looking for retirement 10 years down the line. And so, again, that written plan helps us accelerate. It helps us be on the same page. It helps you and your spouse be on the same page. And it helps you and your children understand kind of where things are going. Plus, in the short term, you can build wonderful memories. You can start getting to know each other and experience. In this gentleman's case, he worked a lot of hours and really doesn't understand his kids, and he feels disconnected with his family. And this is the opportunity. The political unrest may always be there, and it may never directly impact you. But natural disasters, um, rising costs, changes in local laws and regulations, I think it's a great idea to have a retreat, whether it's a mountain retreat, whether it's a rural cabin, whether it's a summer home, whether it's a place you and the wife go and you relax and you spend 2 weeks there, and it's got everything you want, but it's not getting on a plane and dealing with all the hassle of travel. Folks, I hope this has been useful to you. Again, it's the same plan. When we do a consultation, I'll tend to record a follow up for you in the form of a podcast, but it's always the same plan, written plan, and that way we can sit down and we can talk with all the stakeholders, all the individuals in your household to make sure it's going to work for you, because we don't want to invest so much into something that isn't an absolute fit for fear. We don't want to be making decisions based on scarcity, because in the natural world, the squirrels don't have grocery stores. The deer always find food. Now, while there are predators, those who understand how to work with nature, how to connect with nature, how to be involved with the land, they tend to not have any issues. They have different kinds of issues, but they don't have any major issues that you're going to get dumping $500,000 on a piece of land you've never seen. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got specific questions, visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Understand, I'll build an analogy of our conversation. I'm not going to share any confidential information. But again, I will work with you to develop that design plan. I'll work with you to implement. My background is business development. My background is project management. And if you're not doing the thing, then it will never happen. And you can do the thing at scale, and you can do the thing to solve other problems in your life now. But ultimately, it's not another podcast. It's not another video online. Let's get out in the real world and start connecting with nature and start building the outcomes that we're looking for. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org. We've got free newsletters, we've got courses, we've got resources to get you started. Now is the time to build your mountain retreat, to build your homestead, to start getting the security that comes with a stable environment, growth environment, and that transition in your life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast.